Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for AMA number 8. It is time for your questions. If you have your own questions, send them in on the YamatoCannon subreddit or ask on Discord. Let's jump right into it. First question. Reef Valvez asks, ass or titties? Well, why you gotta make a man choose? Barely Awesome Heretic asks, is the current esports culture league healthy to players? Do you think players are being treated properly? Well, this is a very, very wide question. I know that there are players that are being treated properly and there are players that are being treated less properly. The only proper answer to your question is that it's improving because, you know, getting players is an investment and organizations are protecting their investments. And if you want to succeed, you need to think about a lot more aspects than just the gameplay. You need to think about what's outside of the game. Health is, you know, there's a wave of health management and everything else management that is coming through esports now. So I think with time, players are going to get treated more and more proper. Barely Awesome Heretic also asks, do you think esports will overtake traditional sports? Is Super Bowl versus League World Championship? Yeah, for sure. I don't know if League of Legends will be that game to do it, but esports definitely will. Like, esports is the future. There is no way around it. Right now, the generation that is getting older, meaning 20 plus, we are going to be the adults and the parents very, very soon, and then our children, they're going to also be interested in esports. It's just so easy and accessible, and I think it will just be hard to find those staple games that will stick around for forever, because who knows, maybe League has another 5 years in it or something like this, you know, who knows. One wrong turn and it dies, right? So this is something that is so volatile about it, and maybe the only reason I would have any type of reservation towards this, but esports is definitely the future. I don't know if the League will be the major future, but I think the trajectory looks good. Jort566, with funnel stars coming back up in top lane, how would you counter that style of play? Well, it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult because it requires coordinated play. You need to think about what is the enemy missing when they are laning two people top lane. They are missing a jungler. So if your jungler basically hamstrings the bottom side of the map because they have no jungler, all of a sudden this could be a way for you to win the game. While as a top laner, you need to most of the time survive. Maybe you have to pressure the Lulu. You need to manage the wave properly. This is a very abstract question because there are some situations where you need to push, some situations where you need to freeze, and it is all based off of judgment of time. I think freezing is a good way, you know, it's a decent way because you force a reaction from the enemy jungler, and as long as you can't get dove, all is good, you know. So as a top laner, you just make sure you don't die, you make sure that nothing goes too crazy, and your team together with like your jungler needs to find impact in the game, whether it's top side or bottom. Like, he's not playing against a jungler. The enemy jungler is going to show a lot to farm CS. Final Archangel, I see that guitar in the background of your videos. Do you play? If so, what kind of music do you like to play, and will we ever see any content surrounding it? I suck at playing guitar. I'm not good at it at all, and it would be a very, very big insult to guitarists to say that I would ever do any content around it. Maybe, just maybe, but then most of the time it would be ironic. I like to play Metallica, the usual shit, System of a Down, some Slipknot songs, whatever. The usual, rock and metal music that people enjoy, nothing that is outside of the ordinary. The most impressive song that I know how to play is Classical Gas. This is something that you can look up. I found the song because Tobuscus made a video of it, because he was told by his teacher if he learns this song, he will never have homework again. So for some reason, I learned how to just, play it. What is your favorite shirt? Hans0000 asks. This one right here. Look at this. This is a cat riding a shark, and the shark is puking rainbows. No, I'm just kidding. This is just some random shirt that I bought off Amazon or some shit. My favorite shirt is my black and yellow shirt, the one that I wore during the finals against G2. It is like the classic black and yellow shirt, because when you zoom into it, there's like small Indian families on it and frogs and notes for famous symphonies. So it's a pretty sick shirt, and these are the details that you don't see. NL Sim Shady asks, and no one has yet, how do you like your coffee, good sir? I like it just black. You know, I wouldn't put anything in my coffee. I think it makes no sense. You know, you drink coffee and then you hide the taste of coffee by putting random shit in it. I don't think it's the way. So I most of the time just drink espresso, you know. I think all that extra gunk that is in coffee, you know, it's not really coffee. I think espresso is the only way you can drink coffee, like pure coffee. El Brigina asks, as always, just want to start by saying I'm a huge fan. Thank you very much. Unlike last year, it feels like already the meta is far more figured out in the sense that there is a baseline template for drafts that most teams seem to agree on. What do you think this is a product of? Well, I don't think necessarily it's something that is agreed upon. I think there is still variety in prio. Some people like Aphelios, some people like Senna more. There is a Soraka coming into the picture, Sona. There are things out of the ordinary that are coming in. And the issue with everything feeling like everything's a template is because there is a clear tier of champions that is just above everything else. If we take a look at top lane, Mordekaiser, Aatrox, GP, and there is one more that I'm missing. I don't want to say Ornn, there's something else that I'm missing. Nevertheless, there is a clear tier of top laners that are just better than everything else, right? And then there are small counter picks into these, but they just provide too much utility to sack out, like to even head into that matchup. Same for bot lane, right? It's like Leona, Nautilus. These champions are getting nerfed, so we might have a big shift in terms of what people are playing support on. But it is just the picks that are strong, there are very little counters to them. And as they are going to get played more and more, eventually a new generation of the meta will appear. And I think right now it's just too many strong picks in every role that make all the other picks look bad. Jungle, Elise, Gragas, and Jarvan and Lee Sin, right? Picking anything else beyond that in 10.2 is kind of troll, but 10.3 is going to shift that again, right? All it takes is one champion to enter the meta for maybe 3 more to enter. When Sejuani becomes meta again, all of a sudden Karthus will be played, Kayn will be played, and Zac maybe will be played, right? So there's always these key champions that will open up windows for more. And right now, like in mid lane, LeBlanc is a big, like the benchmark for what mid lane meta is. So you have to pick, you always have to either blind pick LeBlanc or pick something that is good into LeBlanc, so it makes it trickier. And then you have to always, with picking mid lane, you have to keep top lane in mind because double flex is super important both on red side and blue side. So it's just a question of time before something new comes in. For example, with Soraka, what is the counter to Soraka? I think if you play Elise Gled, you're going to have a good time and you're going to get ahead and you're going to be able to dive it over and over. So I think that is definitely the way forward that teams should try, I believe. It's Totally Amber asks, no idea if you've been asked this in the past, but how do you feel about young players that drop out of school, college, university to try and make it big? Would you encourage or discourage them from doing so? And do you worry that many fans wannabe players try to replicate that? There's always going to be fans and wannabes that replicate it. This is just, there's too many people in the world for this not to exist, right? So this is gonna happen. I don't worry about it because I can't prevent it. There are people that are just delusional. And I would always discourage dropping out of school, college, and university. Why I would discourage it? Because if I am enough to discourage you, meaning like if I tell you you shouldn't do it and that discourages you from doing it, then you don't belong in doing it. Because there needs to be a drive within you that will conquer the opinion of everyone else. Because there is the true sense of the meaning, if you conquer the enemies within, the enemies of outside will do you no harm. And this is why I always discourage it. If I can discourage you from doing it, a person that maybe you listen to on the internet, then you don't have the drive to conquer all of the hurdles that you will have to overcome. So this is the first stepping stone, you know? And me even saying that is going to, create some wannabes, some fans that tell themselves, oh, okay, well, Yamato exposed the secret that I just need to, his discouragement is actually encouragement, but these are the guys that cannot be helped. And this is always going to be, an issue, but it is not my problem or my purpose to save these people, because in the end they can only save themselves. And sometimes people need to make the right mistakes in order for them to figure out what path they're supposed to be on. Mugivara no Pascal asks, which EU teams do you think could win the title in NA? So this is a very interesting question, because this means that these teams would have to practice in NA. And practicing in NA would be very difficult, because a lot of players that go from Europe to North America, they get to practice against worse players, they get to practice in worse solo queue, they get to scrim worse, everything gets worse. The lifestyle as well, it kind of pulls you in to relaxation, because you have sun and constant good weather, great food, people that talk like this cool dude, and Starbucks around every corner. No, I'm just kidding. Nevertheless, there is a lot of temptation there, and there's a lot of hurdles that you need to overcome, and a lot of teams that might be good in Europe will inherently be worse in Europe. So take this with a grain of salt, as I say, that the teams that could win North America, I think a team like OG, Fnatic, and G2, of course, could win North America. And then the next team in line would be Rogue and Misfits, right? But this is where it becomes muddier and more difficult, because I think, honestly, I said OG, and I even regret putting OG there, because that wouldn't be certain. But I think 100% Fnatic and G2 would win the title in North America. For the rest, it's a toss-up, honestly. I think there is a great privilege in being in a region where you get to practice against a team like Fnatic and G2, and I think a lot of teams take this for granted. Akila asks, hello, how can we join the esports scene, work in esports in general? It's my dream and I want to know if it's possible without being mechanically gifted. Thank you for your attention. Well, the answer to your question is, look at the problems of esports and now solve them. That's it. You don't need to have a fancy degree, you need to come with solutions. You need to bring something that is fresh to the table, because there is millions of people just like you. I want to work in esports because I love to play games, right? That's not enough. You need to bring something to the table. Analytical skills, finance, marketing. There's a lot of pieces of the esports business that needs to run properly. Production, maybe there is, editing work that can be done. Maybe there is graphical work that can be created. Maybe you can become an agent. There is many moving forces in esports and many problems in esports. Try to find the solution. For example, on my end, I'm seeing that there is very little content in the League of Legends sphere in comparison to how big the game is. A lot of YouTube is plagued with clickbait, so I'm trying to find that solution, right? I'm trying to fit in somehow in the market. The same way when I became a coach, the coaching role was a joke. In 2015, it was a joke. The coaches I worked with before, when I was a player, they were all jokes. So my mission was to reinstate or instate for the first time integrity and respect for the role. And there are many of my peers and colleagues that also brought in the same mindset, and those are the coaches that are going to stick around, and the coaches that get filtered out, they just don't belong, right? They don't belong because they don't have that same integrity and respect. So find the issues, solve them, and then you will get hired, because people and organizations, they aren't stupid. They want to have good people on board. Okay, with that being said, I think that summarizes most of the questions. If you have more questions, just ask in Discord, ask on the YamatoCannon subreddit. It's very important that you do so. I wanted to also announce that I am launching a Patreon page where I will have some tiers You guys have an option to support me, which I of course will appreciate. I'm going to put the YamatoCannon experience there like I'm gonna put it up on an RSS feed so people can use that, and also with audio only. There will be tier lists for lower tier competitive, because it's not the same. You know, it's not the same, the competitive tier list for the highest level of gameplay, the LCK and LPL and Europe. It's not the same tier list as if you're playing like some low level tournament with average master players, right? So I'm going to make a tier list for the average like amateur player, meaning not even regional leagues, below that. And also a solo queue tier list that would be accessible at a specific tier point. And then some other things. And I'm open to hear any type of suggestions if you guys have any ideas. But I would appreciate any type of support, because this freelance business is tricky, you know, and you need to make it worthwhile. And I want to make sure that if you support me on my Patreon, this is going to be something that is worth it. I don't want to have any kind of free bailout or something, because this is not what I believe in. So we can find ways together to make it worthwhile. I have a lot of ideas, and everything will be found on the Patreon page. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one, and peace.